Hello everyone, welcome to The Green Man. Hope you're all doing good and well. So for this evening's video, I'm doing something a little bit different from the usual content I upload on Fridays, which is typically album reviews for rock and metal bands. But you'll also know if you follow the channel, I sometimes delve into the world of sci-fi, fantasy and horror. But for this evening's video, I'm doing something a little bit different from any of that really, and I'm talking about independent films, none of which are really sci-fi, fantasy or horror. Maybe you could argue there's one or two horror aspects in these films, but yeah, I'm talking about independent films. Now, there are a couple of reasons for me doing this. One is that I love independent films. In about the last 10 or 11 years of my life, I've realised that in films I'm looking for something more with the kind of, it's not that I necessarily dislike blockbusters or necessarily dislike lots of commercial films. I like a lot of commercial films still and a lot of blockbusters that come from the major film studios or from Hollywood. But over time, I kind of got a bit bored of a lot of those films and just their cliches, the shallow characters, the lack of realism, right? And with independent films, they have a lot of heart, they have artistic vision. Directors, I feel like, are driven by their artistic visions. There is an intimacy to these films. You can relate to the characters more, you can connect to the characters more. These films offer you just something more to connect to than perhaps your average big commercial movie that comes out, you know, and is a box office favourite maybe. These films just offer something else, and that is why I've grown to love independent films, and that is what has driven me to decide, you know what, let's share a video about 5 of my favourite independent films, I guess of all time really. Some of these are quite recent, one of them is very old as well, and one of them I will give a warning about, maybe 2 actually, that maybe have triggers in. So if you suffer from anxiety or depression, I'll do a quick disclaimer before I talk about those films or recommend them to you, that there is, this possibility, I guess, that if you suffer from anxiety or depression, you may be triggered by a couple of scenes in those films. So anyway, but let's start with the first film that I'm going to talk about and recommend to you all, which is Victoria from 2015. Right, this is a German film directed by Sebastian Schipper, and it is a sort of, it's a bank heist or a kind of a heist thriller type of film. Right, which is the extraordinary thing about this one is that it was all done in one take as well. It's a small cast of characters who acted, I think, therefore for like 2 hours non-stop in this film. Quite an extraordinary thing. And the performance of the actress in this film, Leia Costa, is mesmerising. This is edge of your seat, a real thrilling ride through this film that I cannot recommend highly enough. Maybe if you just love thrillers, you'll love this. It is kind of has some beautiful moments in it as well, and you're sort of like you're with this group of characters throughout the film. I guess that's the way how best to describe it. It sort of has that realism to it, that you are following this group on their kind of journey through the night, as it were, and you also realise they're getting themselves into huge trouble as the film goes on, and it just escalates and escalates. But it's absolutely brilliant viewing. Cannot recommend this highly enough. And it is one of my it only came out in 2015, but it's become one of my all-time favourite independent films now at this point. Next up, we have the film which I'm just going to give a bit of a warning about. So this is a Spanish movie from 2014 called Stockholm, and okay, so some scenes towards the end of this film I think may trigger you if you have depression or anything like that. So I'm not going to recommend it to you if that's the case with you. But it is nevertheless a fantastic film, I think. Kind of starts as a boy meets girl sort of film, but don't let you put that off, because the film develops and develops, and it has some really interesting twists in it. It makes great use of music, I think, in the film as well at certain points in time. And you just kind of, you just kind of fall in with this film as it goes on, and it's just really another really interesting, slightly sort of interesting ride, yeah, as you go through this film. Great film. Next up, we have this film is directed by one of my favourite Norwegian directors, in fact, called Oslo, August 31st. The director's name is Joachim Trier. I'm not sure how you pronounce his first name. I apologise profusely for that to the director if you ever happen to watch this video. But this is a great film. It's quite a short film as well. It's pretty deep, and again, I suppose I probably ought to warn anybody that suffers from depression or anxiety or anything like that. The last scene of this film is kind of pretty dark. So anyway, um, but it is terrific stuff. And the strange thing about this film is it is kind of at once, as dark as the subject matter of this film is, it's at the same time really beautiful and calm. It has a really calm feel. I think that's just the style of direction from the director. But when I watch it, I kind of watch this film sometimes just to relax, bizarrely. When the film is about this recovering drug addict, walking around Oslo, a beautiful place that I've been to myself, and he is kind of trying to reconnect with his family and friends throughout the film. And as he does so, you sort of realise the challenges this guy faces, which are really quite, he has a real struggle in his hands to reconnect to friends and family. And the film has real depth to it. It's kind of a bit philosophical at times. It's kind of got a clever philosophical aspect to it. But it just has this sort of serenity to it, There are scenes which are absolutely beautiful. The use of music's pretty good. There's just having been to Oslo myself, this captures how Oslo feels when you're there. And it's just so serene. It's so great. It's such a good film. And one of my favourites of these 5 for sure. Next up, I'm going back to 2006. This is a classic actually, and it is one of the first films that will come up, I think, on Google when you search for independent films. And it's called, you may know this, this is the most recognisable film on this list, it's Little Miss Sunshine from 2006, a fantastic dark comedy film. It stars Steve Carell and Toni Collette and others. Paul Dano as well was in this film. And this is a kind of following a dysfunctional family with all these interesting traits they have about them. And they have really, the way the relationships between them develops in the film, you get to know all their idiosyncrasies and the way the film is built up towards its ending, which is also fantastic. Everything about this film, it's kind of almost perfect little dark comedy to watch. And I say it kind of, this is a great film to watch to lift you up, I guess, if you're feeling down, because for the dark aspects, it has a hilarity to it. It's really funny as well, and it deals with those dark themes so incredibly well. 2006 as well, perhaps even this film was a bit ahead of its time. Little Miss Sunshine, go watch it. You probably know it actually anyway, this one, but it's a great independent film, which maybe people don't know was an independent film as well. Last up on this list, is perhaps my favourite of all of these 5, maybe. Difficult to say, I like them all almost the same. But this is called Alice in the Cities by, I guess he's quite well known maybe in Germany as a famous German film director. I don't know particularly a lot. I've seen a few of his films, and this is possibly the favourite one I've seen that he directed. And it is just so charming. It's so beautiful to watch this film. So, okay, so what is this film about? So, this is a German guy who is a writer. He travels to the US, I think, to try and start maybe a new life or something. But when he tries to fly back, I think he'll get a flight back to Germany. I think he meets a German woman who has a daughter, and I can't remember what the reason is, but he's not able to take his flight. They're not able to get the flight, I think maybe because of a strike or something like that. And he ends up having to care for this woman's daughter, because she obviously, thinking this is the 1970s, she's only met this guy, I think, for maybe a day and a night or something, when she leaves her daughter in the care of this guy called Philip Winter. And this is the character we're following in the film, of course, is Philip Winter, and he kind of gets to know this little girl throughout the film. And of course, it's sort of remarkable that this mother leaves her daughter in the care of this guy who's almost kind of a stranger to them. But I don't know, this is the 70s. I can't see in 2022 whether this film would, I guess would make the screens. But, it's such a charming film with The way the awkward relationship develops between this guy and this little girl who is in his care, essentially, he becomes the guardian of this 8-year-old. The way their relationship develops is just so wonderful to watch. It has, the little girl is such a great little actress in this film. She does an amazing performance. It's so much charm to the film, and it's kind of witty in places too. It thrives on the awkwardness of it, I think, of the situation, and it just has bucket loads of charm to it. It's just such a charming little movie. And yeah, I like the music in this one actually as well, being a music fan too. Quite like the soundtrack. It just has this very straightforward kind of gentle acoustic melody to it, but it's just works so well with the film. Yeah, an intriguing movie. It says on the back that lives in the mind for hours after the lights have come up. I would definitely agree with that. When you see this, you're gonna want to rewatch it time and again. It is such a great little film. So that's it. Those are my 5 independent films that I love and I recommend to you all. Thanks as always for watching. Do drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video, if you like this kind of content. Obviously, the majority of the channel is usually music reviews, album reviews, rock and metal. Otherwise, from me, take care, everybody. Until next time, bye for now.